children's obesity.
New numbers show pediatric obesity rates are at a new high.
Our region has some of the highest rates of childhood obesity in the country.
Why are children overweight? We are letting our children down as a country. We need to educate the parents a little bit better on understanding what is healthy and what isn't healthy. Are they feeding themselves because mum and dad aren't around? Something needs to be done. And welcome back to another Let's Talk uSports podcast. This is a podcast where we, as sports coaches and PE teachers, come together to talk about the sector. It's quite a relaxed, easygoing podcast. Last week, we actually had one of our sports coaches on, Coach Tom. Coach Tom was talking about his experience working every day on the ground, the actual realities of what it's like being a coach in schools, in nurseries right now. But today, I'm going to be talking on my own. It's just a solo podcast today, so let me know what you think you prefer when we've got guests on. Do you prefer solos? Just let me know in the comments. But today's podcast is all about children's obesity and the huge issue that we have here in the UK of asking the question, why are so many children overweight? Now, before we get into that, just think I'd introduce myself again. So my name is Charlie Hiscox. I run a sports coaching company here in Reading, and we are planning to become the largest sports coaching company in the UK. And the way we have to do that is by getting fantastic educators on the ground, delivering fantastic sessions to young people, and that's something I'm really passionate about. Now, anyway, going back to the topic. So, why are children overweight? Okay, so it's a very simple question to ask, but very complex answer. And I'll do my best at giving you different insights into why we might be seeing such an issue with children being overweight. Now, when I say such an issue, I've actually got the figures here in front of me. And so if we look at reception age children and then compare that to year 6, so if I took a 1,000 4 and 5 year olds, I would expect 101 of them to be obese. I'd expect 121 of them to be overweight. Okay, so that's 222 kids of 1,000 are overweight. Okay, and then you got 765 are healthy and 12 are underweight. Now, that 101, when you get into them leaving in year 6, so that was our foundation, going into year 6, what was 101 are obese, we're expecting 234 children to be obese, and then we're expecting 143 to be overweight. So we're now looking at 377 kids to be obese or overweight in a pool of 1,000 kids. Now, I just think we are letting our children down as a country. We're allowing children to grow up unhealthy. I think there's the figures show that a obese child is a lot more likely to be obese once they are adults as well, which obviously comes with all the other risks that come with being obese. Much higher chance of dying earlier. You have a higher chance of getting type 2 diabetes. You have heart issues, all the issues that you're going to have with obesity. And actually, when we're looking at out of 1,000 4 and 5 year olds, 101 of them are obese by that point. I think we really need to be looking about what can we do as a country to change it. Now, obviously, the government have got plans in place, but if we actually look at why children are obese, the simple answer is because they are consuming more energy than they are putting out. So they are eating more calories than they are burning, is ultimately the reason. Now, why they are doing that is probably where it gets a lot more complex, and we can look at the environments, the foods, the physical activity, maybe the stresses, the mental issue. We can look at everything there, but ultimately the simple answer is that they are bringing in more calories than they are burning. So I wanted to sort of break that down into different parts. So if I look at food initially, how is a 4 and 5 year old, how are so many 4 and 5 year olds having the opportunity to eat so much calories that they're not burning off? Okay, and we know that it is much more likely that in households where there is more deprivation, sorry, we know that they're a lot more likely to have obese children compared to more affluent families. So we know that now. Is that because food is a lot easier, and like that unhealthy food is a lot easier to buy? Is it cheaper to buy? Is it that it's just what they've always done? So a obese parent has always drank Coke and eaten loads of burgers and whatever it might be, and is that that's what they've experienced? It's very unlikely to expect someone who eats fast food 7 days a week to then prepare for their children a tuna Greek salad. Okay, so so you can look at it in that way, like the food that these children are actually being presented with. You can also look at the education within that as well, but food to start with is we know that they're eating a lot of calories. So how do we reduce that? Well, one option is you actually reduce the amount that child is being given to eat. That is a one easy answer to it to some extent, but once a child is used to a certain amount of food, as a parent, does that become quite difficult to then try and take them away from that food? We know that there's going to be a lot of children who are going to refuse to eat broccoli and green beans and all that sort of stuff, but put a plate of chips on their in front of them and they're going to eat it. So obviously parents, at some point you have to decide what you're actually going to feed your children. So when it comes to food, that's definitely something that's going to come into it. The government have looked at reducing or increasing the amount of tax on sugary drinks, for example, and that's going to make it more expensive to buy sugary drinks, but it doesn't take it off the market, because ultimately we still have free choice and the government aren't going to take that away from us. I think if the government wanted everybody to be healthy, well then they could just, they could look at taking all the unhealthy options off the shelves, but that's obviously not going to happen in the UK, is it? So when we look at food for a child, there's one answer of reducing the amount of food that they're being given. You're then looking at the options that they have to eat. So do we as we need to educate the parents a little bit better on understanding what is healthy and what isn't healthy, and trying to give them easier answers, especially for low-income households, trying to give them a better solution to being able to feed their children, but in a healthy way. And then within that is reducing food options, and then probably to some extent, especially the older children, year 5 and year 6, I think it's educating the child as well, and helping them understand their own bodies, because once they know that what they're eating is bad for them, it might help influence their choice. And the parent could tell them all the time, but if they actually learn it at school that a certain thing isn't healthy, or it's not good to do this, or not to eat this, or whatever it might be, then the education for the child is going to be important. So yeah, I think food is going to be a big part of it, and we as sports coaches and PE teachers are going to be able to look at this and go, well, yes, well, physical activity is really important, but you could do all the physical activity you want in the world, but if the child is still eating more than they are burning, they're still going to put on weight. So we have to look at the food, and that's probably where we as PE teachers and sports coaches don't have so much of an influence over that child. We're not there at breakfast and dinner time and snacks in the evening and all that sort of stuff. But it wouldn't be uncommon for a child to get home from school and the grandparent does a nice hot chocolate, and then they have a pizza and chips, and then they have some chocolate in the evening. And it's like, well, whatever activity was going on during the day, it's going to be very hard to get a child to burn all of that when they then go home and have a really unhealthy dinner. But obviously you can look at school dinners. That's going to be an option. And is there pressure on the catering provider within your school to actually provide healthy foods? I think normally there is, but some kids then don't eat the hot dinners and they have a packed lunch and it's full of unhealthy snacks and full of carbs and sugars and stuff that they probably don't need. So that's I think that is very difficult for us as educators to really be able to impact what they eat, but we can definitely impact the education and helping them understand their bodies a little bit better, and doing that within our lessons, within the school. And if the school can really embody a pedagogy around health and activity and movement and being healthy, and that's also going to play a part on it as well, without obviously highlighting and excluding children who are overweight and obese as well. Now, another big part of this is going to be physical activity. We as sports coaches and PE teachers can look at being able to provide the best PE lessons and really encourage physical activity and school sport, and if we can do that, and that's going to have a really positive impact on that child as well, being able to get them to enjoy being active. And if I was working in a school all day every day and I'm seeing certain children and I'm able to really build up a good relationship, and I learn that, right, this kid really likes gymnastics and this kid really likes rugby and this kid likes dance, and then you can almost use that to your advantage in trying to help them to be more active, and however you may do that within your school, but having little movement breaks, having more active PE lessons, really stressing in your school that it's important that PE lessons are active. There's not lessons where the teacher is just stood talking and doing demonstrations the whole time and not actually giving the children much time to move and learn. And if we can get our children more competent, then we know that they're going to be more confident, they're going to be more active, and that's going to help them be more active. If a child is learning in PE how to throw and catch effectively, and then they go outside at lunchtime and there's a handball session going on, they're more likely to jump in if they feel comfortable with throwing and catching. But if they haven't learned how to throw and catch very well, then that's not going to help them. So if we can really think about increasing the amount of activity that our children get, it might be a scheme that we encourage children to walk to school, or really trying to push for more whole school wide events. A whole school does the mini marathon, or the daily mile, for example. That maybe every child, instead of putting their hand up, has to stand up. Okay, and all these different things to try and increase the amount of activity. But as we know, I would probably stress that food is going to be the bigger role. It's going to have a bigger role in reducing a child's weight over activity, similar as it is to an adult in the gym. Or you see people working really hard in the gym and they're doing a fantastic effort, but then they go home and they don't eat the best foods, or they eat too much food, and so they're not seeing the impact they want to see in the gym. But the food is probably a much higher majority, a much higher percentage of the actual impact it has on reducing somebody's weight. There's even research out there to say that it's almost like 1% physical activity and 99% food. And I don't know exactly where the research is, but I definitely saw somebody talking about that, an expert on the Diary of a CEO, talking about how activity doesn't make that much of a difference. It's more down to the food. So if we can encourage children to be active and have fun whilst moving, then that's gonna hopefully reduce those numbers. And then probably just finally thinking about the environments that these children are in as well. So we have to appreciate that. Say listening to this, you are a healthy person who's in the healthy category within their weight, and you have a nice income, and you can feed your children well, and you can, not everybody is in that situation. So there'll be some people who are working 3 jobs all day, they still can't make ends meet, or they eat a completely different type of food to what you typically eat within your house, and not everybody is the same, and they're not all eating the same type of food as you. And so when we look at the environment, we have to consider the whole environment, the relationships that child has, the even like, especially as you get older, the stress that does it. At what point do we start seeing children eating due to stress and due to mental health illness? It can go the other way in terms of children not eating at all, but it can go the other way as well, where they just overeat because they're stressed about something or whatever. There's also people have different disabilities which might stop them being as active or as you, or they might have even like I'm sure that children with Down syndrome are much more likely to be overweight and obese because they don't produce the same the same hormones and chemicals as other people. So you've got that side of it as well. You've also got, are they in a household where it's not the loving family relationship you might expect, and what pressures does that put on? Are those children in year 5 and 6 actually, are they feeding themselves because mum and dad aren't around as much as they need to be? There's so many different ways that we can look at this. I think it's very, very easy for us to look at this where maybe we've had a good upbringing, nice family, we've had nice food eating, and we were able to provide good food to our family. Not everybody's in the same situation as us, and yeah, if we can really try and put the importance and the education in, I think the answer is going to be education in a lot of this for the parents and for the kids, and for them to enjoy movement and enjoy activity. It's going to make a really positive difference. But I really hope that I genuinely really hope that more can be done in reducing childhood obesity in the UK, because there is just so many children that are not getting the experience that they should be getting as they're growing up. I just think it's so sad that you see the figures are astounding, really. Like for you to look at nearly 40% of children leaving primary school are overweight or obese. Like we are letting our children down, and something needs to be done, because is it just going to get worse? Maybe it will get better, but what does better look like? That goes down to 35% rather than 40%. Well, there's still 35% children who are overweight or obese. Is it very it's not going to go down to zero, is it? Realistically, it's not something that's going to happen, but surely we can see those numbers decrease in one way or another. Food, environment, physical activity, they're all going to play a key part within that. But yeah, I think for me, the more we can see positive change within the sector, within the government, within like the foods that are being provided, there's so many different parts to this that it's not just our sector has to do something. There's when you break down like why could this be? Well, the children nowadays compared to even like 10, 15 years ago, they can easily be absorbed within social media. I think social media can reduce the amount of activity, the quality of even video games now. Our kids they're way more addicted to play video games than it was 15, 20 years ago. Is it that the streets aren't as safe, so kids can't go out and play as much? Is it the education just isn't there in terms of the food? Is has the quality of PE and physical activity within schools actually dropped? There's so many different ways that you can look at it, but we know that something needs to be done, and we would love to see more children in a healthy weight category. So I think with that, I'm going to wrap up today's podcast. Hope you are enjoying these podcasts. This, I think, is the 7th one that's gone out now. Don't forget, these come out every Thursday at 3 p.m. But we also have our uSports Weekly that goes out on a Sunday at 6 a.m. That goes out on YouTube, where we give you behind the scenes look at what it's like running a sports coaching business. But yeah, it's been pretty good. I've been enjoying it so far. I've had really good comments, really good engagement from you guys. So keep that up. If there's anything you want to listen to, or you want me to try and invite somebody on, or whatever you fancy, just let us know. And I'll see you in the next one.